be some jerk that writes an article, Elon said this would happen, and it didn't happen. He's a liar and a fool. It's very annoying when that happens. There is not really much of a short-term concern. Like it's things. It's. I think we don't need to sort of be stopping people from farming or having cows or whatever. Like, this is crazy.
So if you look forward 30 years, this year, the year 2050 has been labeled by scientists as this kind of almost like this doomsday deadline on climate. There's a consensus of scientists, a large consensus of scientists who believe that if we haven't completely eliminated greenhouse gases or offset them completely by 2050, effectively we're inviting climate catastrophe. Do you believe there is a pathway to avoid that catastrophe, and what would it look like?
I am not one of the doomsday people, which may surprise. I actually think we're on a good path, but at the same time, I want us to caution against complacency. So long as we are not complacent, as long as we have a high sense of urgency about moving towards a sustainable energy economy, then I think things will be fine. So I can't emphasize that enough. So long as we push hard and are not complacent, the future is going to be great. Don't worry about it. I mean, worry about it, but if you worry about it, ironically, it will be a self-unfulfilling prophecy. There are three elements to a sustainable energy future. One is obviously sustainable energy generation, which is primarily wind and solar. There's also hydro, geothermal. I'm actually pro-nuclear. I think nuclear is fine, but it's going to be primarily solar and wind as the primary generators of energy. The second part is you need batteries to store the solar and wind energy, because the sun doesn't shine all the time, the wind doesn't blow all the time. So you need a lot of stationary battery packs. And then you need electric transport. So electric cars, electric planes, boats. And then ultimately, it's not really possible to make electric rockets, but you can make the propellant used in rockets using sustainable energy.
Right.
So ultimately, we can have a fully sustainable energy economy, and it's those three things: solar, wind, stationary battery pack, electric vehicles. So then, what are the limiting factors on progress? The limiting factor really will be battery cell production. That's going to really be the fundamental rate driver. And then whatever the slowest element of the whole lithium-ion battery cells supply chain, from mining and the many steps of refining to ultimately creating a battery cell and putting it into a pack, that will be the limiting factor on progress towards sustainability.
All right, so we need to talk more about batteries, because the key thing that I want to understand, there seems to be a scaling issue here that is kind of amazing and alarming. You have said that you have calculated that the amount of battery production that the world needs for sustainability is 300 terawatt hours of batteries.
That's the
end goal.
Very rough numbers, and I certainly would invite others to check our calculations, because they may arrive at different conclusions. But in order to transition not just current electricity production, but also heating and transport, which roughly triples the amount of electricity that you need, it amounts to approximately 300 terawatt hours of installed capacity.
So we need to give people a sense of how big a task that is. I mean, here we are, the Gigafactory. This is one of the biggest buildings in the world. What I've read, and tell me if this is still right, is that the goal here is to eventually produce 100 gigawatt hours of batteries here a year.
We'll probably do more than that, but yes, that's, hopefully we get there within a couple of years. 0.1 terawatt hours.
But that's still 1/100th of what's needed. How much of the rest of that 100 is Tesla planning to take on between now and 2030, 2040, when we really need to see the scale up happen?
I mean, these are just guesses. I mean, so please, people shouldn't hold me to these things. It's not like this is like what tends to happen is I'll make some best guess, and then people will, in 5 years, there'll be some jerk that writes an article, Elon said this would happen, and it didn't happen. He's a liar and a fool. It's very annoying when that happens. So these are just guesses. This is a conversation.
Right.
I think Tesla probably ends up doing 10% of that, roughly. Yes.
Let's say 2050, we have this amazing, 100% sustainable electric grid made up of, some mixture of the sustainable energy sources you talked about. That same grid probably is offering the world really low cost energy, isn't it, compared with now? And I'm curious about, are people entitled to get a little bit excited about the possibilities of that world?
People should be optimistic about the future. Humanity will solve sustainable energy. It will happen. If we are, continue to push hard, the future is bright and good from an energy standpoint. And then it will be possible to also use that energy to do carbon sequestration. It takes a lot of energy to pull carbon out of the atmosphere, because in putting it in the atmosphere, it released energy. So now,
right.
Obviously, in order to pull it out, you need to use a lot of energy. But if you've got a lot of sustainable energy from wind and solar, you can actually sequester carbon, so you can reverse the CO2 parts per million of the atmosphere and oceans. And also, you can really have as much fresh water as you want. Earth is mostly water. We should call Earth water. It's 70% water by surface area. Now, most of that's seawater, but it's like, we just happen to be on the bit that's land.
Right. And with energy, you can turn seawater into irrigating water or whatever water.
Absolutely.
You need.
At very low cost. Things will be good.
Things will be good.
Yes.
Also, there's other benefits, right, to this non-fossil fuel world where the air is cleaner and
yes, exactly. Because like when you burn fossil fuels, there's all these side reactions and toxic gases of various kinds, and like sort of little particulates that are bad for your lungs. Like there's all sorts of bad things that are happening that will go away. Okay. And the sky will be cleaner and quieter. The future's going to be good.
I'm of the opinion that while there is a long-term concern for climate change, there is not really much of a short-term concern. It's a very slow process. I think we don't need to sort of be stopping people from farming or having cows or whatever. Like, this is crazy. This is the fundamental thing from an environmental standpoint is if you've got billions of tons of fossil fuels, carbon in liquid and gaseous form or solid form in the case of coal, that's buried deep underground, and you move it from deep underground into the atmosphere and the oceans, you obviously change the chemistry of the oceans and atmosphere. And if you keep doing that for a long time, we'll eventually change the chemistry enough that there will indeed be climate change. But Earth is very big, and humans are small. I mean, Tim Urban, I calculated that you could fit all the humans on Earth on one floor in the city of New York.
On one floor?
On one floor.